morning, afternoon, or evening, depending on where you are and what time of day it is when you watch this video. My name is Z, and welcome back to my gaming corner. In this very special build guide, I am going to show you just how amazing the new Firebird's Finery set is. And this build I have dubbed, and I put the moniker to it, of Firebird's Execution. Because the way this build works is it gives you an execute button, like an execution button, like an annihilation button. And what it does is you're fighting the enemies, and you see a big champion pack, or the Rift Guardian comes, or a big giant boss is there, and all you have to do is press your execute button, and they just go pop, and they're dead. Doesn't matter how much life they have left. They could be at completely full life, maybe at 99% life because you're hitting them with Disintegrate, and you hit the execute button and they just go pop and they're dead. So it gives you an execute / annihilate / destroy button. And I've been doing some pretty serious testing with this, and I absolutely love it. I have not run Diablo 3 with a set in almost 3 years. I've been using the Legacy of Dreams stuff, and I've just been using ancient items and just random legendaries that I find with a Legacy of Dreams gem, and I've been running Legacy of Dreams. But now that Firebirds is back, it is absolutely amazing. Now, to put this into a little bit of context, when Firebirds was released with the launch of Reaper of Souls way back in 2014, if you remember, the two-piece bonus said that casting fire skills on an enemy will ignite them for like 3,000% weapon damage. And then when you die, a meteor falls from the sky and revives you on a 60-second cooldown. And then the 4-piece bonus said continual fire skills on an enemy will cause them to combust, and they will then burn until they die. Okay, and then the 6-piece bonus said you get Firebird stacks for every enemy that you have ignited, reducing your damage taken by X% and increasing your damage done by X%, stacking up to like 50 times or whatever, and then you always get max stacks when you have an elite enemy ignited. Okay, that was the old Firebird set. And then if you remember, Blizzard gutted it, like completely took a knife and cut out its heart, and they said that casting fire skills will cause an enemy to burn. And then you have to cast 2, that was a 2-piece set bonus with the meteor that revives you. And then the 4-piece bonus said casting 2 additional fire skills that are like 2 additional different ones will then cause them to burn until they die. And then of course the 6-piece set really didn't change much. But when they said that you had to cast an additional 2 fire skills, that just gutted Firebirds completely, because I was so used to using Disintegrate with Convergence, which makes it fire. Well, I wrote to Blizzard in their suggestion box last summer, I think it was, and I said, the Typhon's Veil set is really cool, but I don't play with Hydras, and I don't play with Slow Time, and I don't use DMOs, and I haven't used Archon since 2015, and I can't use Firebird. That was my favorite set until you gutted it. And I was just wondering, since you gave us Slow Time and you gave us like Arcane Barrage and you gave us Hydras, will you give us a Disintegrate build? I mean, we have the Hurgbrash's Binding, which makes Disintegrate free to cast. We have the Death Wish, which makes Disintegrate do more damage. We have the Mantle of Channeling shoulder item that gives us more damage when we're casting Disintegrate. But all of these items also work for Ray of Frost and Arcane Barrage. Can we just have a dedicated Disintegrate set? I asked that so nicely in their suggestion box. Guess what? They delivered. So I give you now the new Firebird set. The 2-piece bonus of the Firebird set says, Disintegrate ignites enemies, causing them to take 3,000% weapon damage per second until they die. When you die, a meteor falls from the sky and revives you, and that's on a 60-second cooldown. Okay, that's just the 2-set bonus. The 4-set bonus says, casting Disintegrate adds combustion stacks that reduce the cooldown of teleport by 2% per stack. It stacks 50 times. So that basically is a 100% reduction in the casting time for teleport. Teleport normally has an 11-second cooldown. before you can cast it again. This eliminates that cooldown if you have 50 combustion stacks. And then, more for the 4-piece bonus, you gain 80% damage reduction while maintaining combustion stacks. So right off the bat, you are taking 80% less damage. So massive survivability right there on the 4-step bonus. Okay, but the kicker is the 6-step bonus. And this is where the annihilate/execute/die button. This is where you press the button and the monsters just pop and they die. This is the execute button. You gain 5,000% increased damage while ignite is applied to a target. Okay, and then this is the execute button. Hitting an ignited enemy with a non-channeling fire spell deals ignite damage times combustion stacks. Now think about that for just a minute. If you have 50 combustion stacks going 3,000% damage per stack, that's 1.5 million extra damage percent increase. That's 1.5 million% damage increase if you have 50 combustion stacks. And then you're going to multiply that by the channeling. So you gain 5,000% increased damage. You take that ignite damage of the 3,000, the 1.5 million, and times it by the combustion stacks. It's 1.5 million percent increase to the damage of whatever non-channeled fire skill you do. So your execute, your annihilate button is the non-channeled fire skill. Disintegrate is your channeled skill. And P.S., you don't have to use convergence. You can use the base disintegrate if you want. You can use volatility if you want. You can use amplify if you want. It doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be convergence, which is fire. If you want to use convergence, by all means use convergence. But the beauty of this setup is you don't have to use convergence on your disintegrate spell, because that non-channeled fire spell is your execute button. Now, let me show you some cool things you can do with that. So if we go to our skills, let's start with the skill setup really fast. The first skill I use is Magic Weapon Deflection, okay, because then you get a protective shield when you're attacking, which will basically nullify a lot of the extra 20% damage that you're going to be taking. So Magic Weapon Deflection, it is a passive that lasts for a long time. Okay, the next skill I use is Arcane Familiar Sparkflint, because it summons a fiery familiar that grants you increased damage. Okay, cool. And then people would say, well, why wouldn't you use energy armor? Well, you can. If you want to use energy armor, you can use energy armor. Okay, I just prefer storm armor because it's cool, and I use storm armor shocking aspect, so critical hits have a chance to further electrocute a nearby enemy. Okay? We're playing with fire, and you're going to see fields of fire. And the shocking aspects will just cause a little bit of lightning, and people will go pop, 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 and they get fried. It's beautiful. Okay? And then I'm using Teleport Wormhole. Okay? That way I can teleport once, and then within 3 seconds, I can teleport again for free. And then the cooldown will start. But because of those combustion stacks reducing the casting time, like the cooldown time of teleport by 2% per stack, stacking 50 times, 100% reduction. If you have 50 combustion stacks, you don't have a cooldown on teleport. So it's basically as fast as using Aetherwalker, but without the arcane power cost. It's beautiful. Okay? And then we get to Disintegrate, and you can put this wherever you want. We have 6 skills to play with. But the Firebird set is now a Disintegrate set, and I asked for this last summer, and thank you, Blizzard, for listening to my suggestion. I use Disintegrate Volatility, but you could use Convergence if you want, so the damage turns to fire, so you're playing with even more fire. I got sick of what Convergence looks like. I want to do something different, so I use Volatility. Enemies killed by the beam have a chance to explode, and guess what? They explode in fire, and their corpses are burning. It's great. You could use Entropy if you want. The beam fractures into a short-range cone instead. That makes you a little more melee instead of range, but if you want to play that way, play that way. If you do Chaos Nexus, while channeling the beam, you become charged with energy and discharge at nearby enemies, damaging them. You could totally do that. That's just fine. Or you could do Intensify. Enemies hit by Disintegrate take increased damage from Arcane, and Disintegrate is an arcane spell. I just prefer Volatility. I like the way it looks. It's a thin red beam. It looks like that, okay? So I just love Disintegrate Volatility. Now, let's look at the gear. So let's start with weapons, and we'll just go once around the circle. If you're on computer, this setup is basically the same. We're going to start in the weapon slots. Now, you can use any weapon you want. Find the best weapon you can, use it. Socket it, put a Flawless Royal Emerald in the socket. I'm using Fulminator because that's the best weapon I found so far in the season. For the gloves, and the shoulders, and the chest, and the helm, and the pants, and the boots, you want to have the full Firebird set. This is one of those times where you are not going to be using Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube. If you want to use it in the cube, you're more than welcome to, but that means you have to change a couple things around just to make it all work. Okay? The beauty about this build is there is so much freedom in the other slots that you can do whatever you want. Okay? For a belt, I like the Witching Hour. Okay? So you have the Witching Hour equipped, and I'll show you what's in the cube in a moment. So the Witching Hour it comes with crit damage, it comes with attack speed, it's the only belt that comes with attack speed, and then you want to try and get as high of an intelligence stat as you can on this belt. The secondary stats don't matter, don't care. Okay, for the necklace and one of the ring slots, I am using the Traveler's Pledge and the Compass Rose for the Traveler's Walk. And so the Endless Walk / Traveler's Walk says, while moving, damage taken is reduced by up to 50%. Well, that's 130% damage reduction when you're walking around. Great, that means you can't be killed. Awesome. And then, while standing still, damage dealt is increased by up to 100%, which is double damage. Awesome, right? Okay. For the bracers, and it's very important with this build, because with the Execute build, you need to be using your Flame Twister. This is the one skill I didn't talk about. You're using Energy Twister, Gale Force. Enemies hit by Energy Twister take increased damage from fire. You're going to be playing with a lot of fire. So you're using Gale Force on your Energy Twister. Okay, now when we get to actually showing you what it looks like, I'll show you why we use Energy Twister instead of, say, your, where'd I go? Right there. That's why we use Energy Twister instead of your Hydras or your Meteor or your Blizzard. So these are the non-channeled fire spells. If you go into secondary, you can make Arcane Orb a non-channeled fire spell. That's about the only one in secondary. And here, Electrocute is channeled. Spectral Blades has a Fire Blades on it. It's not channeled, but that's like Uber Melee. I prefer to use Energy Twister, Gale Force. Okay, so this is a Firebird Twister / Execute Annihilation build. Okay. And the reason that we use Energy Twister is because of our source. We are using Etched Sigil. And you'd probably be wondering why couldn't I use, like, the Firebirds offhand, put the Etched Sigil in the cube, and use, like, an Ancient Death Wish? You totally can. You totally can. And if you want to use Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube and use a Mantle of Channeling so you're just increasing your damage, you can. I'm not, because this build is so amazing that you don't need it if you don't want it. Okay, so you're going to need an Etched Sigil. I'm using Ransler's Folly, and it says the damage of Energy Twister is increased by X%. That percent is 225 to 300, mine's at 241, and it periodically pulls in lesser enemies within 30 yards. Oh, so what does that mean? It means it's going to pull in groups of enemies. You can press your execute button and they die. It's beautiful. Okay? For the second ring, you can use Convention of the Elements if you want. That means when it goes around to fire, your Energy Twister do more damage. When it hits Arcane, your Disintegrate does more damage. And when it goes to Lightning, your Shocking Storm Armor does more damage. But if you don't want to use Convention of the Elements, you don't have to. If you want to do Arc Stone between you and your follower and have lightning pulsing between the two of you, great, do it. If you want to use what I am using, Unity, here and on my follower, use it. and take that damage taken is split between wearers of this item as long as your follower has the item that causes them to be invincible. For the Enchantress, that is called the Smoking Thurible. For the Scoundrel, it is the Skeleton Key. For the Templar, it is called Enchanting Favor. Those are the items that make your follower be invincible. It says your follower cannot die. Okay, so that is the setup. It is the full 6-piece set of the Firebird set with a Witching Hour belt, Unity Ring, Compass Rose, Traveler's Pledge for Ring and Amulet, Ransler's Folly on the bracers, Etch Sigil for the source. Okay? And once again, for the skills, we're using Magic Weapon Deflection, Disintegrate Volatility, Energy Twister, Gale Force, Familiar, Spark Flint, Storm Armor, Shocking Aspect, and Teleport Wormhole. For passives, we are doing Glass Cannon. We are doing Astral Presence. We are doing Temporal Flux. Enemies that take arcane damage are slowed by 80% for 2 seconds because we're casting Disintegrate Arcane skill. And then we are taking an extra life, Unstable Anomaly. Okay, that gives us an extra life. But with the 2-piece bonus of Firebirds, we have 2 extra lives. And with what I'm about to show you, we actually have 3 extra lives. Okay, in the cube, you want to have Death Wish, Hergbrash's Binding, and then a jewel, like a jewelry piece of your choosing. I'm using Convention of the Elements because I found a really nice Unity that had a socket. It was better than my Convention, so I put Convention in the cube and equipped my Unity. If you want to do Moonlight Ward, do Moonlight Ward and have little arcane things around your character that blow up when people get too close. Do it. If you want to put the Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube, which reduces set bonuses by 1 to a minimum of 2, put that in the cube and replace your shoulders with the Mantle of Channeling. Do it. There's so much freedom in this build. But here's the rub, okay? You remember that 1.5 million% increase to damage? What your execute button does and what that 6-piece set bonus does, it allows you to crit for billions, B for billions, and it allows you to annihilate for T for trillions. So 1 billion is a 1 with 9 zeros after it. 1 trillion is a 1 with 12 zeros after it. So you crit for billions, you annihilate / execute / destroy for trillions, T for trillions. And it is glorious, okay? For your follower, with this revamped follower system for Season 23, for a chess piece, you can give the follower whatever you want, just socket whatever you want. For shoulders, I do the Spalders of Zakara because I don't like repair bills, and it's great that now that it emanates. For a weapon, you can give your follower whatever you want. For the gloves, I use the Gloves of Worship. If you want to do something else, you can. I do that because Shrine Effects lasts for 10 minutes. And this is where it gets interesting, okay? For the belt, you want to do the Sage's Journey on the belt and on the boots. And what the Sage's Journey says, 2-set bonus, you get 250 extra for all your stats. Vitality, Intelligence, Dex, and Strength. Extra 250 points. Awesome. 3-set bonus says, doubles the number of Death Breaths that drop. Awesome. Okay? So when a Death Breath drops, another one also drops. So if you're on Torment 16 and the monsters drop between 3 and 4, you're getting 6 and 8. It's beautiful. Okay? For the pants and the helm, you want to do Kane's Insight. So Kane's Insight says 2-piece set bonus, 8% attack speed, and 50% bonus experience. Joy, it's that 8% attack speed that we really want. And then the 3-set bonus says when a Greater Rift key drops, there's a 25% chance that another one will drop. So you're getting more Rift keys, you're getting more Death Breaths, and you're having a lot of fun. Okay? For an amulet, you can do the Flavor of Time on your follower. Pylon effects last twice as long. Very helpful when you're in the rifts. Okay? For the 2 rings on your follower, this is where you need to put your Ring of Royal Grandeur, because you're only using 2 pieces of the Sages and 2 pieces of Kane's, and you need the 3-set bonus. So you use Ring of Royal Grandeur on your follower, and then that's where the other Unity Ring goes. Okay, and then for the bracer for your follower, obviously you want to use Nemesis. That way when you hit a Shrine or Pylon, you get a champion pack and you can finish your rifts faster. But that allows me to show you the execute button more often because we use the execute button on champion packs, elites, rares, rift guardians, and bosses. Firebird set will annihilate normal trash. But the elites and the rares and the rift guardians and the bosses, it doesn't really just annihilate them. That's where your execute button comes into place and they just go pop and they're dead. I'm going to show you what that looks like right now. Okay, so you're thinking, but Z, you're 600 Paragon. Yes, but I do not have any Paragon points assigned. Therefore, Paragon means nothing in this run. And we are going to run, notice how my game adventure mode, Torment XVI, that is 10, 15, 16, Torment 16, Bounties and Expiration. This is now the run of a regular Nephilim Rift on Torment 16 with the Firebird set, Ransor's Folly Bracers. You can use any weapon you want. Edge Sigil is your source, Unity Ring, and the Compass Rose with the Traveler's Pledge. My execute button is square, my teleport button is R1, and my disintegrate button is R2. If you're on computer, you can set your disintegrate to whatever button you want. Just make sure that you put your energy twister on a button that is easily accessible with one of your fingers. If you want to put your disintegrate on 3 and your execute button on 4, so you press your index button down for execute, you can totally do that. Okay, this is what the run looks like with the new Firebird set. Yeah, be quiet. So activate your 3 passives, your magic weapon. So it pulls people in, and you sit there, you're gaining combustion stacks, and they just instantly die when you have 50 combustion stacks. It's absolutely beautiful. This is Torment 16. See, it pulls the enemies in. I'm critting for billions, you see that? 20 billion here, 20 billion there. And we execute for trillions. Okay, so here's a champion pack, here's an elite. Execute. And, oh, I wasn't targeting it. There we go. Execute. They die. Execute. They all die. It's beautiful, right? How cool is that? We'll come up here and grab this treasure chest. We have another belt. Okay, so we have 50 combustion stacks. I'm going to teleport, and look, my teleport instantly regenerated. Still waiting. Okay, so here's another champion pack. Hang on. We fired them, we execute, and they die. 8,300 billion is 8 trillion damage. Did you see that? Execute 958 billion on that one because it wasn't a champion pack. You only use arcane power when you execute enemies. Here's a perfect example of why we have the Nemesis Bracers. Here we go. We're going to get out of the way. Okay. Execute, and 6893 billion is 6 trillion damage. You crit for billion, you execute for trillions. 3,700 billion is 3 trillion damage. I need this dog to die. There we go. Okay, and we continue on in our journey. Execute. Did you see that? Did you see that? I hit execute and they all died. So Ransor's Folly brings all the enemies into one location at the twister, and then you can execute them with your execute button and they will die. So they're all dead. Execute. 1394 billion, 1.3 trillion, 1782 billion, 1.7 trillion. Here's another champion pack coming at us. The blue glowy guys, look at this. Execute, and they die. Did you see it? I hit execute, I hit the execute button, click, and they die. Execute, death. See how that works? So you press your execute button on the champion packs, and they just die. I haven't actually died yet. Okay. Execute, and they're dead. Execute, and he dies. You see how that works? You're firing, you have your combustion stacks up, you press your non-channeled fire skill, and they die. And I'm using, once again, Energy Twister Gale Force. Here is an XP shrine. Execute, and they all die. 2143 billion is 2.1 trillion. I just crit for 348 billion. Okay, you see that? You crit for billions, and you execute for trillions. All that 1,000 million, 9,000 million is 9 billion, and then the 2,300 billion is 2 trillion. You crit for billions, execute for trillions. Okay, this is a power pylon. We're going to get away and execute, and they're all dead. I executed the minions and executed the big guy. When I hit execute, die. It just chops off ginormous chunks of their health, which is their entire health bar, and they die. Health shrine, beautiful. Okay, we have some ghosts. Critting for 24.1 billion. Did you see it? Okay, execute, and they're dead. Execute, and it dies. And execute, and it dies. So yeah, the new Firebird set with that 6-piece bonus gives you an execute button. And when we get to the Rift Guardian, I will show you a real execution. Like, it's an absolute annihilation. It is absolutely beautiful. We'll grab some Nephilim glory, execute that lovely little icky person. Execute, and they all die. Oh, and the green goo on the ground, yuck. Execute. Okay, round up, execute, and they die. Ah! Okay, we have a champion pack. This is beautiful. Champion pack, targeted, execute, death. Execute, death, execute, death, execute, death. I pressed square 1, 2, 3, 4 times and executed each of them, and I get 8 death's breaths for my trouble because of the Sage's Journey on my follower. It's beautiful. Execute, death. Round up, execute, death. That's just the way it works. So we round up, execute, death. We have another champion pack, execute, and they die. Execute, death. So, as long as you have 50 combustion stacks, your execute is 1.5 million% increase in damage. Not 10,000% increase in damage, not 12,000 increase in damage, 1.5 million% increase in damage. Okay? It's beautiful. We're critting for billions. There was 154 billion. And then we execute for trillions. So let's round up a whole big group. Execute. And you saw 1,500 billion, which is 1.5 trillion. You crit for billions, you execute for trillions. It is beautiful. And you don't need any special setup, you don't need any special gear, just use what you find. Execute. There it was, 14.2 trillion. Did you see it? The numbers only stay on screen for a limited amount of time, I know. 5670 billion is 5 trillion. And we get a helm. Okay, execute. And it dies. Did you see that? I executed the big guy, he died. Minion, execute, death. 2069 billion is 2 trillion. Execute, death. You execute them, and they die. That's just the way it is. Pick up their orbs and continue on. Execute, death. Did you see that? 4 trillion? Ah! Okay, execute, death. Execute, death. Holding my combustion stacks, execute, and he dies. It's that fast. Execute, death. Okay, execute, execute. There we go. Had to target him, then execute. Execute. Oh, he teleported away. So, execute, and death. When you cast that non-channeled fire spell, which is the Energy Twister Gale Force, it does 1.5 million% increased damage. It is beautiful. Execute. Now, that was a bad execute. 2643 billion, 2 trillion, 209 billion. You crit for billions, you execute for trillions. It's beautiful. And here's an XP shrine and a chest with, oh look, there is Azure Wrath on the ground. Beautiful. We'll just come down here and execute. And they all die. 20.4 billion on the crit. Okay, ghosts just die. If you just hold disintegrate on them, their life starts to go down and then it just disappears. See, it starts to go down and then it disappears. I'm not executing, I'm just holding disintegrate. It's beautiful, right? Alright, here's the next level. We'll go to the next level. We are now in Caverns of Arane, Joy and Rapture. We'll take a Hell Shrine, execute. 707 billion on that crit. Oh, get out of there, execute. Okay, here's the Rift Guardian. Who is it? Execute. And death. I executed the Rift Guardian. Did you see it? It was that fast. His health was nearly full. I hit execute and bam, death. That's how fast it works. Okay? This guy, execute. Oh, he's shielded. Boo. And he's frozen, but shielded. Execute the minion, execute the big guy. That's how fast it goes. You hit the execute button and they die. That is how you play the new Firebird set. You're casting Disintegrate, you're channeling Disintegrate. Now, because we have Hergbrash's binding in the cube, let's look at our cube powers. Reduces the arcane power cost of blah 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 Disintegrate by 65%. That makes Disintegrate free to cast. Death Wish. While channeling blah 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 Disintegrate for at least a second, all damage increased by 325%. Great, beautiful, wonderful. Okay? For your character follower, okay? For my scoundrel, you can use whoever you want, and you can use whatever you want. The big one is this final skill. You have a choice of a free life, so when you take fatal damage, the scoundrel conceals you from enemies and prevents your death. Free life. That's 3 free lives with this build. All of them have it. If I was to take my Templar, okay, the last skill he has, he can go Inspire, increase resource generation. You don't need it because you don't use resource. Or when you take fatal damage, the Templar comes to your aid, knocking back enemies, and heals you. Okay, free life. The Enchantress, that last skill, you can either take an aura that increases attack speed, or when you take fatal damage, the Enchantress empowers you to move through time, slowing the world around you to avoid death. Free life. If you take that option for a free life on your follower, you get not 1, not 2, but 3 free lives with this build. That means the enemies have to kill you 4 times before you actually die. Beautiful, right? Okay. I've just been playing with the Scoundrel because he has this lovely ability right here. Critical hits cause you to temporarily deal more damage. Yes, the Scoundrel gets more damage too, but critical hits cause you to deal more damage. I love critting for billions, execute for trillions. It is beautiful. Okay? Now, you probably noticed in my gear that Unity does not have a legendary gem equipped. My Compass Rose, no legendary gem equipped, and in my Traveler's Pledge, I do have a Boon of the Hoarder at rank 50. That doesn't affect my skills, it doesn't affect my damage. All it does is that monsters explode in gold when you kill them. Whoop-de-doo, I just need money for empowering my rifts and getting rift keys. Okay, I had 0 rift keys. How many did I get in that run? 11. Because on Torment 16, the Rift Guardian can drop between 3 and 5 Rift Keys, and with the Cane set, when a Rift Key drops, another one has a chance of dropping. I just got 11 Rift Keys from that one Greater Rift, from that one Rift Guardian. That's why I use Cane set. I can run normal Rift, and then I have 11 Rift Keys that I can run 11 Greater Rifts. It's absolutely beautiful. Now, let's talk about legendary gems that you can put in your gear. Okay, the ones I've leveled up so far, I've leveled up Zeiss. I'm not finished leveling it. Look, it's only level 59. I haven't even finished leveling it to level 70 for the season journey. But, okay, so you can use Zeiss. What does Zeiss Stone do for you? Zeiss Stone says damage you deal is increased by a percent that increases as you level up for every 10 yards between you and the enemy, maxing out at 50 yards. So you take that first number, times it by 5, and you get the second number. That number increases as you level it up by 0.3% for every level. Okay? So the farther away the enemies are, the more damage you do. That means you're critting for hundreds of billions and executing for hundreds of trillions. Okay? And then the other gem that I've leveled up is this one, the Bane of the Trapped. So increase damage against enemies under the effects of control impairing effects by 36%. That number increases as you level it up. And then at level 25, you gain an ore that reduces the movement speed of enemies within 15 yards by 30%. Okay? But if you look at Zai's, that level 25 bonus says 20% chance on hit to stun the enemy. So you're actually proccing Bane of the Trapped at 50 yards because Disintegrate shoots for 50 yards. But here's the rub. Remember how Disintegrate is an arcane spell? And I took Temporal Flux. Enemies that take arcane damage are slowed. I'm activating Bane of the Trapped at 50 yards and along my entire Disintegrate beam. So Bane of the Trapped is the most powerful because it's increasing your damage against enemies under control impairing effects. Slow, frozen, stun, fear. Those are control impairing effects. You're increasing your damage against them by X% increasing as you level the gem up. Now the third gem in the build, I haven't quite figured out what I want to use yet. Like I said, there is so much freedom with this build. So much freedom. And we'll talk to Auric. Thank you, Auric. We'll close up the rift. Okay? There is so much freedom in this build. Okay? Let's look at the legendary gems. If you want to do Bane of the Powerful, gain 20% increased damage, gaining an extra second for every time you level it up, after killing an elite pack, and then you get a 15% increased damage against elites, and you take 15% less damage from them, great. Okay, if you want to use Bane of the Powerful, you can. If you want to use Bane of the Stricken, each attack you make against an enemy, increase your damage it takes from your attacks by X% that goes up as you level it up. And then at level 25, you get to annihilate Rift Guardians and bosses. P.S. I already annihilate Rift Guardians and bosses. So, but if you want to use Bane of the Stricken, you can. If you want to add thorns, we're not really a melee class. If you want to increase the damage of your pets, we don't really use a pet. If you want to get 10% non-physical damage reduction, okay, and increase your elemental resistance as if you're below half-life, this would be a really good place where you could use Esoteric Alteration. My friend Braden, who has since moved away, said he wanted a build where you could use Esoteric Alteration. There you go. Gain 10% non-physical damage reduction. Okay, that means I'd probably not be activating that meteor as often. I wouldn't be taking that free life as often. You know what? We could do that. We could totally do that. We could use Esoteric Alteration if we wanted to. Okay, if you want to poison the enemies you hit, use it. If you want to gain swiftness with every attack and increase your dodge by X% for 4 seconds, stacking 15 times, and you get cooldown reduction per stack of swiftness, well, we already have teleport, okay? The point is that third gem is I don't know what to use now because I've always been using Legacy of Dreams. When you have no set bonuses equipped, you deal X% more damage, increasing as you level it up for every legendary you have equipped, and then at level 25, the bonus is doubled for ancient items. That's been my third gem for the last 2.5 years. I don't know what third gem I should be using. The point is, after Bane of the Trapped and Zai's, you can use whatever you want. That's the beauty of my guides. Do you remember my Averice guide when I showed you how to get 50 million gold? Guess what? 50 million gold still works, even in Season 23. I'll put a link to that Averice guide in the video description below. But that is my build guide for the Wizard Annihilation build. It's my own personal guide. Now, you're probably wondering, why did you use Energy Twister instead of, like, Meteor, okay? I can cast Energy Twister while I'm casting Disintegrate. I'm going to take my Edge Sigil off. Okay, so now I'm just casting Disintegrate. Look, I can cast Energy Twister while I'm casting Disintegrate. Okay? I can cast Energy Twister while I'm casting Disintegrate, as long as I have Arcane Power. Notice how I'm generating Arcane Power with Disintegrate because of Hurgbash's Binding. I just cast Energy Twister myself. Okay? Let's say, for instance, that I wanted to use Meteor and I wanted to do the Molten Impact. This is why I don't use Meteor. Okay? I'm casting Disintegrate. To cast the Meteor, I'm pressing square a lot. I have to stop casting Disintegrate to cast the Meteor. Okay? So also the Meteor has a cooldown. Okay? So when I press square, notice how I have to stop casting Disintegrate to cast the Meteor? That seems kind of pointless, doesn't it? Okay? And it has a big long cooldown, so your execute, if you have 2 and 3 and 4 enemies that you want to execute simultaneously, you can't do that. So that's why we use Energy Twister Gale Force, because I can cast Energy Twister whenever I want without having to stop casting Disintegrate. That's why we use it. But that is my build guide for the Wizard Firebird Annihilation build. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you liked this video, please feel free to smash that like button, give me a thumbs up. If you haven't done so already, please subscribe to the channel, click that notification bell so you always know when new content comes out, and please tell your friends about me so they can come and they can enjoy these videos and enjoy these adventures just as much as you do. Now, I haven't forgotten about Final Fantasy VII Remake, no worries, but my computer is in the shop, and until I get my computer back, I can't really process those Final Fantasy VII videos. I have the game completed all the way to the end, and they're saved on my hard drive, but I have no computer now to edit videos. So I will get them uploaded as soon as my computer gets back from the shop with a working HDMI cable out. So that's been a fun adventure. But yeah, meet me here next time for our new adventures with Final Fantasy VII Remake, and then as we continue our adventures in other video games. I hope you will join me for those adventures. But until then, I'm Z, signing off.